Hello, what's going on? Welcome to my little world. I'm excited to talk to you about today's topic. As per usual, I'm literally just obsessed with this platform. I love it so freaking much. As usual these days, I have my co-host Madison with me. If you are new around here, that's my daughter. She is 8 weeks old as of today. And she's in my little Solly baby wrap. She does make some grunt noises and things. So if you hear that, that's what's going on. But we are talking about placenta encapsulation, and I'm so excited about it because I personally love it and definitely recommend it. I am going to go through like my experience with it. Honestly, I did this without like a ton of research because I talked to my doula about it, and my doula was like, definitely do it. It just made sense to me. Like it made complete sense to me to do this. But I did look up some research articles to include in this, some information that I found and read in a book and stuff. So I'll put all the links for that below in case you're someone who wants to like dive deeper into the actual research of it. But what we're talking about is placenta encapsulation. So there are a few different ways that you could do this. Some people literally just eat their placenta. That was a little too crunchy granola for me. Like I am all about natural things. Okay. I am like all about it. Okay. You already know that. Obviously, you know the vibe, but eating it like with just like a fork or a knife or whatever, like that's too much for me. Okay. If that's not too much for you when you do that, like kudos to you, whatever floats your boat. But for me, that was too much. So I did placenta encapsulation, which is more common. And this is where they encapsulate it into like, like a capsule, like you have like your supplements, your prenatals or whatever. So that's personally what I did. Now I'm going to talk about the pros, the cons, stuff like that. But I'm going to talk about my personal experience with it first, and then we will get into that. So for me, the person that I went through, I had a doula, which is like a labor coach. If you're unfamiliar with what a doula is, they're different from a midwife. A midwife can actually deliver your baby. A doula is like coaching you through the process. It increases your chances of having a natural vaginal labor. It increases your chances of going unmedicated if that's something that you want. It decreases chance of C-section, all that stuff. So I worked with a doula. She was actually on the podcast a couple episodes ago. We talked all about my unmedicated birth story. It was so good. If you haven't listened to it yet, go back and take a listen. But she recommended the person to me who she's worked with before with other clients to encapsulate the placenta. And the overall idea of it is that your placenta is what really produces hormones as you're pregnant. So it really helps you balance your hormones postpartum because you're essentially eating your hormones, right? That are still in your placenta, plus the blood flow, the iron levels, all of that, which we're going to get into. But the woman that I worked with to encapsulate it had two different options for it. She was like, I could encapsulate them raw, like, just the raw placenta, or I could encapsulate it cooked, more of a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, where she like cooked it up with lemon and ginger. So it was more geared towards traditional Chinese medicine philosophies. And I chose that option because another thing that's with TCM, which is traditional Chinese medicine, it's just too hard to say that over and over. So I'm just going to say TCM. One of their, principles for postpartum is to have as much cooked food as possible to warm the body up after, giving birth and after releasing so much blood and losing so much blood and like having essentially like a hole there. Like in order to help healing, they really recommend having warming cooked foods as much as possible. So I wanted to do that with my placenta instead of having it raw. So I chose to do an option cooked. I don't know if that will be an option for you with whoever you're going with, but that is just something I want to share with you because that's what I chose to do. And for me, so when I delivered, obviously I delivered the placenta. I didn't even feel it. So really quick, once I delivered the baby, they're like, okay, we have to deliver the placenta. I was like, is this going to hurt? And my doula was like, Corinne, you just had the baby unmedicated. Like you're literally not even going to feel this. I was like, okay, cool. I literally didn't feel it. It just fully came out. I didn't even look at it though. So I wish I did look at it. Just to like see what it looked like. I was just like, obviously I had the baby on my chest. We were doing skin to skin. We did skin to skin for like over an hour. I breastfed her immediately after. That'll be a whole nother story. Doing a whole nother podcast episode on like our breastfeeding journey. But the point is, I was just so obviously consumed with having Madison on me. I'm like, holy shit, I just did this. Oh my God. I didn't even look at the placenta, but I wish I did. So if you are pregnant and you are gonna, want to do this, I really would recommend looking at it just because unless like you don't want to do that, but I really wish I did. Anyway, point is, didn't even feel it come out, but once it came out, waited to cut the cord. I have other episodes on that, like delayed cord clamping. Once that was done, they put it on ice in a cooler And then Chris brought it down, and we texted the woman who was doing the encapsulation for us, told her like when I gave birth, and she was like, okay, I'll be there in, X amount of time. She knew, like, we gave her heads up, like, hey, I'm in labor. She knew my due date, all that stuff. So she came, she picked it up, it was on ice, and then she delivered the capsules back to me the next day. The very next day they were done. And the thing with this is why obviously you have to work with someone to do this. She told me the amount to take, when to take it, like the proper way to do it. So for me, she said to do 2 at each meal, like 2 with breakfast, 2 with lunch, and 2 with like a snack, not to do it at night. There was like a whole bunch of directions on the sheet. I don't even want to go into it. It's going to be different for everybody, I'm assuming. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I ended up not doing it that way. I ended up doing really only 2 a day. I was doing the 6 a day, and it felt like too much for me. I don't know. It felt like I just intuitively was like, I don't want to take that many at once. I need to scale it back. So for a while, I then did 4 a day, like 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. And then I scaled back to doing 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, which actually I liked it better that way because it wasn't as much at once and it prolonged me taking it. By doing it that way. So that was kind of just like an intuitive thing I did. But if you are going to encapsulate your placenta, the person that does it for you is going to give you directions of how to take it. So what I think is my personal experience is that it 100% helped. Like, research aside, it absolutely helped me, because if you are familiar, I talked about this in the first episode back from maternity of like just life update, which we'll link below. The first week postpartum was really difficult from an emotional standpoint. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the term baby blues, but I absolutely had that. Okay. I was hysterically crying at like 5 o'clock at night. And I was thinking about this on my walk yesterday because I knew I was going to be talking about it today. A lot of times the people I've talked to, because when this was happening, obviously I reached out to my sister who had a baby, I reached out to all my friends. I was like, guys, this happened to you. Like, what is going on? And they were like, yes, like this is so, so normal. I reached out to my mentor and she was like, this happened to me for 2 weeks. And then right after that 2-week mark, it completely went away. Every single person I talked to was like, this happened to me for 2 weeks. One of my friends said it happened for her for 3 weeks and then it stopped. For me, it happened only 1 week and not even every single day that week. So I know this placenta encapsulation helped because it was like the crazy drop in your hormones that you experience after giving birth is absolutely insane because, like I said, you deliver the placenta and that's where all your hormones are. So now you have an insane drop of everything and you feel that shit. Like, it really felt like I was also anxious. I'm not going to get into it because I talked about this in the other episode. So go and listen to that episode. But the point of me saying this now is that the encapsulation of the placenta 100% helped me because I only cried 5 nights that week. There were 2 nights. So I had Madison on Monday, that Tuesday sobbing. I think maybe the Wednesday, I don't remember the exact days, but from Tuesday to Sunday, I cried five nights. So there were 2 times out of there that I did not cry. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. So 5 nights out of that first week, I was sobbing. One night, it was literally like 2 hours straight. It was insane. I felt super anxious. Like, it was just wild. And then it completely stopped. And I started taking the placenta the day, not even the day after I gave birth, because I think she delivered it maybe at night. So I started taking it 2 days after giving birth. And obviously it started making a difference because from when I started taking the placenta encapsulation, I think there was only maybe 2 or 3 times that I cried and then it was completely gone. And that's not just because of the encapsulated placenta. That's also because I know how to support my hormones. Obviously, sleep was not happening. So like, obviously I recommend sleep-free hormones, but that shit ain't happening in newborn days. But like, I know how to prepare my meals to balance my blood sugar and things like that, that obviously do support it as well. But I know this was a huge factor in it because it makes so much sense. So again, now I'll go into like some of the research for it. This is, by the way, been in traditional Chinese culture for thousands of years. Like, this is something they've been doing for so long. This is kind of like a new thing or something that's not really common in America, but it's extremely common for thousands of years in other cultures. And there's like anecdotal evidence with it. Some people say maybe it's a placebo. Listen, even if it is a placebo, if it helps, like, I'm going to do it because feeling so like sad and just crying and feeling anxious, like out of nowhere for quote unquote no reason, was stuck. And it only happened 5 times for me. Like, I'm not doing that for 2 to 3 weeks is probably so exhausting and so horrible And like, my heart goes out to anybody who is experiencing that for longer periods of time, because it really is so like debilitating, because you actually can't control it. Like, it's not like, oh, stop crying. Like, you actually can't stop crying. You can't control how you're feeling. It's like the most out of control I've ever felt emotionally in my entire life. And that could go on for a really long time. So if this helps, whether it's a placebo or not, if it's going to help it, like, why wouldn't we do it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, sure, if it was a placebo, great. It still freaking helps. So I don't even care. So anyway, the evidence that we do have on, again, this is anecdotal evidence, because, you know, again, here, they're not going to throw thousands of millions of dollars into researching placenta encapsulation, because one, only supports women, so they don't care. And number two, a lot of people not enough people are probably curious about it for them to throw that much money in it research wise, but really it's because it has to do with only women, so they don't care. That's just my opinion. Anyway, here's the research we do have. That it decreases your postpartum mood disorders, which I 100% experience, and improves your mood. It improves your mood. This was according to the American Pregnancy Association, that placenta encapsulation has demonstrated to assist with mood stabilization through supplementing oxytocin levels. So it actually helps increase your production of oxytocin, which is like your like feeling like lovey hormone. That's like increases when you have sex, when you cuddle, when you breastfeed, things like that. So this helps with that. I absolutely felt this. Like, I 100% felt this on a personal level. Whatever research can say whatever it wants. It's only anecdotal, but I absolutely experienced this. So it helps improve your mood, increases your production of oxytocin. It decreases not saying that it 100% does. This is just what the anecdotal evidence is. It can decrease your stress hormones. It helps restore your iron and mineral levels following all the bleeding after birth. So you do a ton of bleeding after birth. Like, think of it as like extremely, extremely, extremely heavy period for like days. And then you're bleeding like consistently, not that heavy, but you're still bleeding consistently for weeks. Okay. And like in those first like 48 hours, there will be clots. Like, there's a lot of blood that you're losing. It's a real good look. Like, you're literally wearing like a diaper, the biggest pad ever. Like, it's just really something else. But anyway, you're losing a ton of blood. So this can help restore that iron loss that you're taking. Obviously, I recommend taking iron as well. I take needed iron because I don't love when prenatals have iron within it, because it doesn't absorb well with some other nutrients. So I like that needed has the iron separate. So I continued taking my iron. I'm still taking it now till I get my iron levels checked. I want to see where I'm at. But anyway, in addition to taking your iron supplementation, this can help restore it, because you're essentially like having the blood from the placenta and other minerals is going to really help support you. It can help increase your breast milk production, which I've had an amazing breastfeeding journey. Again, there's so much that goes into it too, but this could definitely have helped it. It helps reduce your bleeding. Obviously supports balancing your hormones. Researchers have found that levels of both progesterone and estradiol is a type of estrogen, are present at high enough levels that they could cause physiological effects when consuming the placenta encapsulation. So they found that these hormone levels are at high enough levels in a placenta to actually make a difference in your body. That's what some researchers have found. I'll put the links down to this. Dr. Jolene Brighton also talks about how it can assist your uterus in returning to pre-pregnancy size more quickly, and that it increases your energy, which I definitely felt this too, because I'm still not getting sleep, guys. Like, I'm getting some sleep, obviously, but like way better than the first few weeks. The first few weeks, I mean, though definitely those first 2 weeks, I was maybe sleeping like 45-minute clips here and there. It was totally insane. Just because I was breastfeeding, she was feeding every hour and a half from the time she started feeding to the time she started feeding again. So you would have like literally 45 minutes in between when one feed ends and then you start the next one. And plus, like in the beginning, I was just like nervous to let her sleep without watching to make sure she's breathing. Like, you know, it's a thing. But anyway, and when I would take the placenta encapsulations, I really would feel pretty good energy through the day. Not every day. Okay. Like, there's definitely days I napped and I was like, holy shit, what is happening? But for the lack of sleep that I was experiencing, my energy wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I know this had to do with it, because I would take it again in the morning and in the afternoon. It would really help carry me through. So again, even if it's placebo, I don't care. Like it helped me, so I'm all about it. Okay. So those are the potential benefits, and I've 100% experienced all of that. Now, I was looking on one of the studies on NCBI, which is a like reputable research, site. The potential cons that they said were that there could be potential pathogenic bacteria associated with it, like with transmission of infections from mom to child. So if you had an infection or something like that, it could have stored in your placenta and then you could be consuming that. And the other con was questionable accumulation of drugs like anesthetics, antibiotics from a C-section. So if you were having a C-section, you had any anesthetics and antibiotics, things like that. You could have maybe, that accumulation in the placenta that you could then be consuming. So just something to think about with depending on how your birth goes. Obviously talk to your doctor, your, doula, your midwife, whatever, you have to support you in this. But I personally absolutely would recommend it. I will 100% do this again. If and when we have another child, it was worth every single penny. And I know that it just makes sense. Like it makes sense. It's an organ that's producing hormones your entire pregnancy. It's filled with blood. Like, of course it's going to support you. Like I know that it does. I know it's not just placebo. Obviously I'm not saying that like, oh, Corinne said it's 100% research-based. Like again, the research isn't fully there, but it just makes sense if you think about it. So anyway, that is my deal. Placenta encapsulation. These words are really hard to say. I did it. I recommend it. I hope that if you do it, you feel the same benefits. Of course, always consult with your doctor, with anybody that you are working with anything when it comes to pregnancy. But I hope this was helpful for you. And I'm excited for you to do this if you do it, because I mean, anything to help support the postpartum period, let's do it, because that shit can be so wild, but it's really like, it's just such a beautiful journey. And it's such a life-changing journey that you learn so much and you learn so much about yourself. And like, I love sharing about it. So let me know how this landed with you. If you know anybody who is currently pregnant, who's curious about this, please share this with them. I am so obsessed with community. I thank you for sharing episodes, for tagging me, for messaging me. Like you're the reason the show is growing, that this information is getting out to more and more people, and that we are just continuing this podcast, experience together. And I love it so freaking much. You are the best. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.